started?
He did start with
We are running behind 2 minutes.
Okay.
So, 3 o'clock.
Okay.
What do we have till 4? Yeah, so
Yes. You can take a.
there's nothing after us, so we can stay until midnight.
There is.
All right, thanks for coming. This is the symposium on team-based learning. And you've got a laptop, but I would encourage you at this moment not to, you don't need to activate it or use it, but we'll get to it in a minute. We're going to watch a couple of videos at first. That's not working. There we go. Holding it backwards. So, does this have a laser pointer on there? I don't know. Oh yeah, it does. They just work. Yeah, I got it. So, what is this seminar is 2 aspects. It's a flipped course. What is flipping a course? And what is team-based learning? Which are 2 different things, but we meld them together. So we have a short video, about 3 or 4 minutes, on what is a flipped course. And I will kind of forewarn you that I don't intend to do everything that is done. It's not working for me, is it? No. This has been put into a mode that I have never used, and I can't get this mouse to work on this iPad here. What it's showing you is not what it's showing me.
And that guy left. You want me to?
Yeah, he went to go check on some other rooms.
You can just go directly to YouTube, maybe also. Is that? See if you can get the video from there.
Oh man. Yeah. My cursor is obviously not showing up there, and I don't know how to get out of this mode because I'm not even in that mode.
Okay, I can get it. Yeah, it's not showing up over there. Okay.
It's not a screen show.
Yeah, they had this problem the other day too. So,
Is it reading view?
huh? No, it's just not showing that what he is seeing here. So.
No.
No.
Oh, wait, there's the second one. That's it.
This one. You see it? What?
No, they see it, but then we can't. No, we don't see it. Oh, we have
Yeah, now it is.
Do you have good connection somewhere?
No, it's not that.
Well, that's just
Copy and paste that.
yeah, that's the old thing. But I don't know if it will still show the.
Right.
There is a copy. Yeah, Control and C, right? It's
no, if we can't see it on my screen, then.
yeah, then how will they see it? Well, if they have
You
it.
did both times, though, made it.
Huh?
It flickered, though. a little
It
bit.
did?
We almost saw it. Not.
Did.
I think if we X out of that, let's go to the second one. See if we can X out of this.
Okay, hold on.
There.
Yeah, this is the.
Well,
Well, that's not the one you are showing.
no, it's not. It's not showing our screen.
Did you do something to that one?
No. No, that was just flipped through the.
Yeah, it's this.
So he's trying to utilize this 360 and record all this, and that's just messing with me.
It's F, this thing, F9. Where's the display one here? Is it F9? Is it? No. Why don't you give them a context, and I'm going to go get somebody. They'll.
The wonderful advantages of technology. don't know how he got that even to display, because I can't get it to display. Well, we can. So it only shows the screen when it's in PowerPoint, apparently. And and the cursor doesn't show up there, so I don't know how to activate these. Now, there's really nothing I can do until they come back. I suppose we could flip through a couple of these. This to work. Wonderful. No, that's not even working. We're stuck.
So the video you wanted to show, was that one that you made, or?
No, it's a video in YouTube.
Because I'm on YouTube for Classroom, because I would never be able to do that. It's coming.
Okay. Yeah, let's just wait a minute. Wait a second.
So you want to give us the background, or you just want to show us the video first?
Yeah, I want to go through the video.
Okay.
And go through the procedure.
I pull it on this screen rather than the other.
Yeah, I just need the screen. I just prefer we can look at my screen.
Just pull up this one here.
Yeah, just show me the screen. Here. Okay, great. There we go. And I can click on it. All right. www, the World Wide Wait.
So what was the issue?
And what was the issue? We're all curious.
All right, I'm not getting sound.
Oh, because it was split between the two rooms.
No, I get sound.
Or between the two screens.
Oh, this is not like a podium in a classroom. That's like I should tell you. No, we're still not getting sound.
I'm not sure anything muted. Oh, there was something.
Yeah.
It's quiet. I can.
What's control on? Oh, there it is.
A faculty member may show slides,
There we go.
videos, demonstrate some
All right,
concepts,
let's
solve
get back.
problems. So you can use class time to have students work on activities together. Class time, during class time. They work on homework and group assignments during their own time. What if there were a way to do the lectures outside of class time, so you could use class time to have students work on activities together? Welcome to Flipping the Classroom, simply speaking. It's a pretty common course design. Students gather in a classroom a few times a week to hear a lecture. A faculty member may show slides, play a few videos, demonstrate some concepts, or solve problems.
I guess so.
On their own time, students work on problems and arrange times to meet to work on group projects. Some faculty are finding ways to increase student engagement and improve learning by flipping this design. In the new model, students watch, listen to, and interact with content on their own time, and then use class time for engaging activities. Here's how it works. Say you're teaching a biology course. One week, you talk about invasive animal species, such as the Asian carp. Instead of lecturing, you post a few YouTube videos about Asian carp. You also produce a video of your own in which you show some photographs of other invasive species and talk about their origins. You want to keep each video interesting, so you keep them under 10 minutes each. To help trigger discussion, you also include some questions that you'll be asking students to think and talk about during your next class session. Later in the semester, students can go back to these videos to review key concepts to prepare for an exam or to guide a project or paper. Short videos are just one option. Audio podcasts, VoiceThread, and many types of interactive media can be used as well. The main idea is to capture your presence, thoughts, and guidance that would normally take place in a classroom setting. Now that the lecture is done outside the classroom, what do your students do when they get together? You can have students bring their laptops to class, work in groups, and research one of the other invasive species that you discussed in your video. Where do they come from? What impact are they having? What is being done to control them? Since they're doing this research during class time, they can get your assistance in determining good sources of information and how to interpret what they're seeing. Also, you'll get a better idea of which students are doing their fair share of work in their groups. There won't be any more excuses that students don't have time to get together for group work. If an interesting idea comes from one group, you can get the attention of the class and have a spontaneous discussion. In short, you can create a much more active environment. There are many other activities you can do in the classroom. Have students discuss course concepts or take different sides of an issue and debate their merits. Students could share drafts of papers that they're writing and get feedback from you and other students. Students can work on difficult problem sets, share solutions, and ask for help when they get stuck. Organize students into groups and have them answer questions about a case study. Or they could write and practice a presentation about a topic of your choosing. There are ways of using class time for activities involving any discipline. The important thing is to get students to engage with the content of your course. Flipping your classroom involves some serious thinking about the way you are teaching and the way students learn. So you may want to start with a single topic or week and see how it goes. The results may surprise you. This has been Flipping the Classroom, Simply Speaking. To get more information about this topic, visit tlt.its.psu.edu/flip. This video was produced by Penn State University and is available for use under Creative Commons license.
Okay, that's a real quick lowdown on flipping a classroom, which did show some elements of team-based learning. This is a video a little bit longer on team-based learning specifically. Actually, it takes us to a website, and we're going to look at a video, second one down. And there are resources here that you can go back to.
Even in large classes with fixed seating, team-based learning motivates students to high levels of attendance, preparation, participation, and critical thinking. But team-based learning is not any old form of active learning or group work. In team-based learning, students engage course content at an applied level, motivated by both task design and incentive structures to spend time on task, gathering input from all their teammates. 4 practical elements of team-based learning prepare and motivate students for this high level of engagement. The first is strategically formed permanent teams. Decide what student characteristics would make it easier or more difficult for a student to do well in your class, and ensure that these characteristics are spread as fairly as possible across teams.
So how can we create a team that's going to be balanced in terms of the characteristics of the students in the class by having all the students at the beginning of the semester take a survey and basically answer a set of questions that would then help us to kind of group them. And so we built up a spreadsheet of teams that we could then assign the students to. So when we come to class, up on the big DocuCam, I have kind of a seating arrangement set up of the entire classroom and where your team is supposed to be sitting.
The way that I constructed them was to make them as diverse as possible. These teams are 6-7 members each, and these teams are permanent. So they don't shift. This is who you belong to, and you sink or swim, and I'm hoping swim together.
Our group was really diverse. We had 3 seniors, 2 freshmen, everyone's a different major. No one knew each other going into it. When you come together, it's pretty interesting to see all become friends at the end of it.
The second element of team-based learning is a sequence of activities that takes place at the beginning of each unit of the course. This sequence is called the Readiness Assurance process because it assures that students are ready to move forward into high-level application of the material. Having completed assigned readings, students first take an individual test over them. Then they take the exact same test again as a team, coming to consensus on their team answers. They get immediate feedback on their team tests, after which they can write appeals if they figure they can make a case for their answers which were marked as incorrect.
To guide them, I've created a reading guide with some general questions and then some specific terms that I want them to look for. Having read the books and looked over the guide and reasonably comfortable, at least that they've read the information, they come into class the first day and they take a quiz 20 points, multiple choice. Then, after they've done that, I put them in the groups. Each team retakes the same quiz, and they have a scratch-off.
I distribute these scratch cards, and the students, then I break the students into their groups, and they go through the questions as a group, and they decide what the answer should be, and then they scratch off what they think the answer should be. And if the answer is correct, then they see a little asterisk.
Okay, 34, we said A. Come on, A. That's wrong. So now we're going with D.
With the scratch-off thing, I actually like the way that worked because you had to keep going until you got it right. And so you couldn't just like miss it and say, oh, forget it, we didn't get it. You know, you kind of had to, okay, well, if this isn't the case, now what?
When I walk around, it is just astounding to hear these students arguing over fine points of Texas civil procedure. They point out to each other, well, this is what this rule says. Well, this comment in this rule says something else, and how do you put those together?
And I never heard anyone say, you know, I told you it was B, and you overrode what I said, or it's kind of remarkable in that way. I found it seems very collaborative and not competitive.
You know, there's one guy who was, you know, really smart in our group. You know, there's one question where we all had like the same answer, and he had one different one. And you know, I think we went through like almost every answer except his, and the answer was right. And you know, just because he didn't speak up, next time I got around, he makes sure he's like, listen, I remember this. You know, this happened because of this. Pretty sure this is right. Like, I think we owe you one. So you know, we trusted him. It was right. And that was the best part about it. So just kind of involving everyone.
At the end of the readiness assurance process, if teams feel they can argue in support of any of their answers which were marked incorrect, they can generate written appeals, which must consist of a clear statement of argument, supported by specific evidence from the readings.
What happens to me over there?
How do they? That's what Elson is going to talk about. Elson, how do they generate the scrap of?
I wrote a question.
How do they do what?
Then they go to the scratch-off.
I actually don't do it that way. It's one of the things I'm going to talk about, which is why we have laptops. I like my courses paperless, but you can order those, and you can use them. Maybe in Canvas there's a way, I don't know yet, I haven't used the quizzes in Canvas, a way to provide a second or third choice. I don't know.
That's poorly worded. If it's ambiguous, they can rewrite it. Or if I just put the wrong answer, they can go into their book, write out this is the correct answer on this page, and they have to cite the evidence.
They seem to work well together, and again, it's a real team spirit building exercise.
The readiness assurance process is followed by a clarifying lecture in which the teacher can focus specifically upon what the team scores indicate the students have not yet grasped. The third element of team-based learning consists of application activities in which students must make decisions to solve discipline-based problems, often using case studies, realistic data, or other specific examples of materials from your field. These activities work best when they incorporate 4 elements that all begin with the letter S. First, problems must be significant in the sense of demonstrating a concept's usefulness. Second, groups should be required to use course concepts to make a specific choice. For example, which procedure is best to implement in a given situation and why? Or from a certain article, what is the best piece of evidence in support of an argument and why? Third, all teams should work on the same problem, case, or question, so they will care about decisions other groups made and their rationales. Fourth, if possible, groups should report choices simultaneously, so differences in group conclusions can be explored immediately.
This semester I taught one class with 345 students in it. Oftentimes with cases, you know, there's not necessarily a right answer or wrong answer. It's, you know, how is it that you reach the particular decision that you reach? what were the steps that you went through in order to reach the conclusion that you reached. So I used the iClicker technology to be able to kind of gauge where the students are at any given time.
Didn't mean to pause it quite right there, but I would pause it just to note real quick. What he is saying is deviating from what she just said, with that there was all come out with the same answer. He was interested in the process. So one of the things you're going to learn about this is there are different ways to skin a cat. It's just something to keep in mind as we go on.
In terms of what they're thinking about the case.
There's emphasis on you have to learn a certain number of facts, but more I'm interested in them learning the process of thinking through history, how to think like a historian does. The way I've done this is to create a kind of a large sheet, an 11 by 17 sheet, that has kind of steps that one needs to go through to think about this answer. Each of these documents basically is steps to writing a good essay. So I had agree or disagree, Cold War fears were justified, and taking this from the historian's viewpoint. And so agree, disagree, write a very short explanation. So the idea is to take them down sort of sequentially through a series of thought.
It's about the New Deal. And it was, if you had to summarize it in one sentence, we had one sentence here, pick which one you thought was more accurate. And then you take that one and compare it to another sentence, which one's more accurate, and you take the winner of that one, like a tournament kind of. And so you end up with the one sentence you like the best at the end. And we found that one was kind of hard, just because you want to take part of this sentence and part of this sentence and part of this sentence and kind of put it all together in your own thing, which we had to do at the end.
We could say this about them that's negative, we could say this about them that's positive, and then to write some sort of summary statement that tries to give it some more nuance and meaning.
And then we'd go up, and each one of us, we wouldn't go up and present, we'd give our big sheets. She could put it on a projector, and each one of us could have a different take on it.
This is a great exercise because they are using the rules to dissect a statement and make an argument one way or the other.
Well, my understanding is that once the court makes a new judgment, so like once that motion is filed, it's possible to go 9 days.
It's wonderful lawyering technique. The way I've always taught it before team-based learning was stand-up lecture. Students are half asleep. I couldn't tell if they were good lawyers or not because they sat there and didn't talk very much. So it was impressed my class. I now know my class are good lawyers.
A group becomes a team when members not only feel accountable to an outside authority, but also feel accountable to one another. Therefore, the last element of team-based learning is student-to-student teammate feedback. Halfway through the term, and again at the end, students are required to give one another brief pieces of group participation feedback. In many cases, this takes the form of students expressing for each teammate one thing they appreciate and one thing they request. These are given to the teacher or TA, who then processes them and emails each student a compilation of what their teammates appreciate about and request from them as teammates.
Lots of them said, what I request of you is keep up the good work. So that's nice in itself. Others of them, they said things like, you have such good ideas. I wish you'd come to class more. One student, I remember, people said, you contribute so much to this group, but you have a negative attitude. And every single person on the team said, but you have a negative attitude. These are things I can't tell students. I can't walk up to a student and say, clean up that attitude. And it just doesn't work.
The professorial role is an extension of the parental role in a way. And I think it tends to incite a kind of rebelliousness, or can't help but do that. And it seems to me that when another student tells another student, you need to come to class more, it's more of on a friendly basis, I think, more like a brother, or if you want to use the family model, more like a brother or a sister than a parent.
Key point there, that the peer evaluation enables students to say things to each other that we can't, or don't want to, or probably shouldn't.
With the 4 essential elements of strategically formed permanent teams, readiness assurance, well-designed application activities, and peer evaluations in place, you will be ready to encounter more motivated, engaged, collaborative critical thinkers in your classroom than you may have thought possible.
I do know in the past, when I didn't use the team-based learning, students didn't like working in groups, or a lot of them did. They would say, I don't like hearing from my classmates, I want to hear from the professor. And I don't get that feedback anymore, so that's huge.
It forces you to work that hard. It forces you to put in the effort. Where every day you're going to be there, every day you're going to be ready, every day you're going to prepare, because people rely on you to be prepared to be there.
They're learning more. I'm learning more. I know more about what they understand and what they don't understand.
I had a lecture class last semester, and I had this team-based learning class this semester, and I thought this class was 10 times better than the last one. I felt like I learned more, I came to class more, read more, everything. You know, I mean, it's enjoyable. It really made history. I really am not a big fan of history at all, but I really enjoyed this class.
Okay. So that's a pretty good video on what team-based learning can entail. There's many ways to do it. Let me try this pointer. I've used those before. So there are these 4 essential elements of team-based learning. Permanent teams. They should be diverse. There's a stress on professional interaction with them, which is this nice thing that comes out that is not an intended part of your course. Students learning to interact professionally and work as teams and collaborate, which is not something we generally intend to do in our courses, but something that can come out of this process. Accountability. So a team-based learning course isn't all about team learning or team activities. It is partially that. And so you still want to have an individual responsibility component, and we'll demonstrate that in a few minutes. Feedback is an important part. You get feedback on your quizzes, and you get feedback from the instructor on your assignments, and that can be, you can up some of your assignments, because instead of having, say, a 100 level class with 50 students and 50 papers, you can have 8 papers with 5 students. So 45 to 50 students, depending on the number. And the other key thing is the assignment design. So this is the active learning part, the part of the course where students are working in teams on an assignment. And this is the hardest part of developing a team-based learning course, which is why in one of the earlier videos on the flipped course, they said, don't do it all at once. Try it in this week. Try it in that week. I jumped in, headed to toe, and flipped all my courses. And it's a lot of work. I didn't have any free time on the break or the first couple of weeks of course, and I'm still just treading water. But I think it's worth it for me.
So how do you divide your students into teams, making sure it's a diverse group?
We're going to get there.
Okay.
I'm going to cover that. I'm going to demonstrate it.
Okay.
So some of the benefits of this team-based learning and flipped course approach is that you avoid some of the boredom and the passive learning of lecture only. That was one of the reasons why I was doing this. One of the key reasons is I've got my PowerPoint. It's PowerPoint hell. Students are bored to death. You're struggling against them going onto their devices, or they're sleeping, or whatever it is. It doesn't eliminate lecture, as our note speaker was explaining this morning, if you came earlier. Lecturing is important because if you do it right, you're not just trying to pass on facts, but you're trying to convince them of why this is important and things like that. So there is very much the element of selling what you're teaching, which is part of the social science of it. But doing that all the time becomes regular and formulaic, and it just bores the heck out of everybody. And I was not satisfied with my teaching. It's the same old thing, and I just don't want to do the same old thing if it's not effective as it could be. Students will be more engaged. They will discuss content with each other much more, as you will see, we'll demonstrate. They will learn more and do better on their quizzes, not necessarily always on their individual quizzes, but they will learn more even from doing poorly on their individual quizzes. And they get better prep for midterms, and they learn a lot on their assignments working in groups. They will get this real-world teamwork experience, learning to be professional with each other. And I think above all else, I think you're going to reduce your failure rate and increase your retention rate. which is something that we and the university administration are aligned on, is improving our retention. So, the way I do TBL is I combine some of the elements of the traditional way with some lecture and in the new way. I have traditional sessions for content, introduction or review. I might show a PowerPoint, a video, involve a lecture during class. I found out this last summer semester when I was teaching a hybrid course that I inherited and I did not have choice, I did not have any say over the hybrid format of it. The dates were given. And I was implementing team-based learning. And we did not have a day for me to do some of this traditional work. And I gave, at the end of the course, in addition to the regular student evaluation, I gave my guys a set of questions. I wanted to bring them with me over today, but I thought I would be coming back to my office of their feedback. And overwhelmingly, students liked it. And overwhelmingly, students said, I wish there had been a day that we had done the traditional lecture. And that was definitely a good learning thing for me for this last semester and this semester, to not eliminate that. They want you to go over some content. And precisely because now you're doing the individual team-based learning, they know that on that second session of the week or the next week, that they're going to get that quiz, they're going to get that team-based quiz, and they're going to want to be introduced before they get that. They don't want to be blindsided by it. And then so I have these sessions with team-based learning. So I have traditional sessions, team-based learning sessions. Sometimes it's a bit of both. Sometimes it's all going to be on how you figure out how to do it. You might have a week of traditional and then a week of team-based learning. You might have a day of traditional and a day of team-based learning. You might have half a session of traditional and half a session of team-based learning. It's all about how you're going to figure out how to get there. So in my case, students, we might complete a PowerPoint. I might get halfway through a PowerPoint in class and say, okay, you guys are going to finish the rest of it. I've introduced the main key concepts. You finish it up. They're going to be required to do readings, maybe watch a video before class starts. Certainly they have to go over the PowerPoint that I went over, whether I covered part of it or all of it. And they prepare for quizzes and active learning assignments that we will do in class. So, what you learned a little bit about is these readiness assurance tests, ORATs. And they are of two types. So we're talking about quizzes. I do them in VSpace. We'll be doing them in Canvas. And they have an individual quiz. So they come into class, they set up their laptops. If this was a regular class, that's the podium, and that's the screen. When I have them do the quizzes, they face that way. So I can see all their screens. They don't even know that I'm seeing their screens, but they know that I'm there monitoring. And that keeps everybody from going to opening up a PowerPoint or some other content that they shouldn't be. I believe there's a feature in Canvas, if we get it deployed, to lock them out of any other website when they're taking these quizzes, which I'm looking forward to that. We used to have something like that with Blackboard called Secure Exam. And students have to prepare. So they come into the classroom, first thing we do is they take that individual quiz. We reviewed the content on a previous session. They come in, they take that quiz. They know they get all set up. And then they take the exact same quiz again as a team. They get together with their laptops. This is open book, open notes. But here's the key thing. On one side of the screen, they see the choices that they made on the individual quiz. They don't know what the results are. It doesn't say whether they got the answer right or wrong. It only shows them the choices they made. So it's kind of like the fact card. This is the choice I made. It should be, where am I? It should be open notes because you want them to debate their answers. Well, I chose B because it says right here in the text, or it says right here in the PDF, or it says right here in the PowerPoint. This was why I chose it. And then that gets them to engage the content a little bit more, and they're actually teaching some of their team members who weren't as prepared. But I thought this was the one. Like I heard that today in my 112 class. And I said, well, but I looked at this information, and this seems to be in conflict with that information. How do we sort that out? And then it's a little finer detail. Well, the question was about which is the primary cause. This is relevant, but that's not the key thing. Conflict among tribes occurs more frequently over land than over inter-village raiding to get a wife. So they debate their choices on their selections that they chose on the individual quiz. They may support with evidence by referring to the content. And what I usually do also is on the whiteboards, I have 1 through 6 teams or whatever, and I have them post the percentage they got correct. So everybody knows that they're going to be reporting to everybody else, and they want, it adds an element of competition if they want to get a better score than the other teams, which I like. And then what I've been also kind of doing is some students, you remember hearing that they said, okay, they can appeal their choices. You could try that. I'm not doing it that way, but the way I'm doing it is to go through the quiz. And since it's a few number, but you don't want more than 20 questions because you won't have time. No quiz should be more than 20. Somewhere between 10 and 20 is a good number. And I can go through those in the session. So there's 20 questions. They get 20 minutes for the individual. For the team, I might give them 30 minutes because it takes a little bit longer for them to discuss. And then I can review it really quickly. And then that furthers it. And all of this is getting them prepped for the midterm. And one of the things I teach on the side of my courses is, if you got an answer wrong on the individual or on the team, and you go back and find the right answer, that's about half the process. The other half the process is to ask yourself, why did I get that wrong? What is it that I did not read in the chapter and make a note about to learn about? And that's really important, because I think what differentiates an A student from a B or C student is that the A student knows what the question's going to be. They know what areas are. They can close the book and say, I'm going to be asked about this, this, and this. So on tribes, I'm going to be asked about kinship. I'm going to be asked about lineages. I'm going to be asked about gender differentiation. I'm going to be asked about what is horticulture. I know that these categories are things I'm going to be asked about. And then I know what the answers are. And so that's something I'm always telling students in addition to that. Okay. So active learning assignments, again, this is the hardest part. But the key thing is that you use and apply the knowledge that they learn. So you go through the PowerPoints, the readings, you have your quizzes, and then in one session or the same session or however you work it out, you give them problems to work on as teams, and they apply the knowledge that they learned to a problem. So at first I thought, well, shouldn't they do all that before the quizzes so that they do well on the quizzes? But in fact, you can do it after the quizzes because you're deepening and reinforcing the knowledge that they learned or didn't learn. They're going to learn it. That's what the point is. And even if it takes place after the quiz. In my case, I'm also thinking, look, they're going to learn it and it's going to take place before the midterm. And then that way they'll be even better prepped for the midterm. So it's a way, if you're focusing on the midterm, because a chunk of their course grade is on that, that's a way to get to it. So it does prep for exams. There are 4 S's of assignments that were shown in the video. It's a significant problem, meaning that it is it's significant in that it shows how the knowledge can be applied. It's a demonstration of how the knowledge can be applied to a problem. It's the same problem, so that all the teams are working on the same problem, so that it generates that element of competition among the teams. It's a specific choice. You don't want it too open-ended. Maybe one professor there in the video that I taught on that section was saying he's more concerned, maybe it is a little more open-ended, and he's more concerned that the student's showing how they got to that answer. So these are not hard and fast rules of team-based learning, but I see them as guidelines and you may want to deviate from for whatever reason that suits your content or your teaching style. And then simultaneous reporting. I have to admit, this is something I'm still trying to figure out how to implement. primarily by the way that I do assignments. I do my assignments only partially in class, and I'm having them work outside of class using Google Docs. And so I haven't quite figured out how to do a simultaneous reporting because maybe I can do it in my after division course, but I haven't figured out how to do it yet. I'm not sure if I need to. So peer evaluation is the other key thing that was covered. It's essential to include those peer evaluations as part of the course grading program because it encourages them to participate and work professionally. They know they're going to be evaluated by their peers. They're more likely to come to class. I stopped taking attendance. I used to hand out an attendance sheet. I stopped doing that. I like not having to do that. And I think that the peer evaluations encourage them to come to class and participate and be ready. It also encourages them to prep for the teamwork. And they receive critiques that instructors just cannot provide. You do it twice a semester. I'm still ironing out how I do that. But right now I have a Word doc. They download it. It's the one that you'll have access to. They complete one for each member of their team and they upload it in the Dropbox. And that's then downloaded. Their name is cut off of it so that when they receive it back from their team members, it's anonymous. They get anonymous feedback. They don't know who did it. And I make it 5% of my course grade, and it doesn't matter what their performance is. Their 5% is given to them just for completing it. So I want to disassociate their score on the peer evaluation from completing the evaluation. I want them to complete it and to be honest about it, so that they're giving honest feedback to their students, to each other. So you get full credit for completing it. I just associate the grade from the feedback. And here's another thing: is if you didn't complete them, you don't get them. You don't get the 5%, and you don't get the feedback. And we do this twice a semester. You got to do it not too late in the semester, because the whole idea of it is that they can learn from it and then pick up their game for the rest of the semester, so that when you're doing it again at the end of the semester, so it's really 2.5 and 2.5%. Okay, so let's experience it. You all should be able to log into VSpace now. And I went through this a little bit quicker than I usually would because we lost some time.
Center for Academic Innovation.
Yeah, so you'll have to go to this drop down, right? You'll have to go to this drop down here in VSpace. I assume everybody here is familiar with VSpace. I probably should have asked that first. And you should be able to find this Center for Academic Innovation there. And what I have to do real quick now is here you are, and it's groups. And now what I would normally do at this point is, I look at my students, and as a sociologist, I see males and females, and I see ethnic groups. So I count. And I say, okay, females. And I say females, I start with females of one ethnic group or females of another ethnic, so I just go 1. So if I have 50 students and 45 students, then I'm going to make 45 students, 5 groups. 8 groups, no, 5 groups of, 8 groups of 5. And so I count 1 through 8. And I might not get to 6 or 7. So there might be fewer than 8. But I just round them off, and that way we get, do that for ethnic groups and gender, and so that we get a balance. And sometimes you make an adjustment, things you kind of screw up the process. So I just do it that way. And then I hand out a sheet of paper, and all the 1s meet over here, all the 2s meet over here, all the 3s meet over here. I give them a sheet of paper, give me your usernames on that sheet of paper, and then I do what Poonam did for me is put you. Well, she put you in the course. I would put you in the in a group. So I'd add a group, and I wish this laptop worked a little better. So, there's Art, Martin, and Amy. And how many people we got here today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we could have 4 groups of 2. Nope, forgot one thing.
You meant 2 groups of 4?
Nope. I'm going to have you work in small groups today. But normally it would be groups of 5 or so. I like 5. So with a large class, we would do 5. With you, you're just not worth it. We're going to do 4 groups of 2. Just maybe more work. And let's see. Are you gonna be in a group, Poonam?
I have to leave soon because
Okay. Let's see.
will start at 4, so I will have to.
Martin, I got you in, right? Bacon, Lisa, where are you?
Right here.
Okay, and let's see. Spencer, okay? You're group 2. Okay. And then, so I can continue this on, well, maybe better do it now because I'm not going to remember who I just added. So normally I wouldn't take up class time doing this. Eric and Valerie. Okay. And then 4. Okay. And then we have, who am I missing here? Gail? Do I have you in?
You don't have me in.
Gail, and who else am I missing? Frazzy, I've got you in, don't I? Michael? Huh? Do I have you in a group? Oh, you didn't notice.
I'm not in a group yet, so boy.
Who? Okay. It won't matter. Susan? Yes? Okay. Let's see. Now, the nice thing about VSpace is if you do add, well, I don't need to know you nice things about VSpace because it's not going to be around much longer. But normally what you can also do is I tell students, if you go to use the mail tool will show people what groups they're in. But if you use it this summer. All right, what I want you to do now, anyhow, is go to Test Center. And you will see a quiz there for you. Right? You should see this quiz. You there? Anybody having a problem? Should I make it turn around? That's right. And the password is Foogelbank. Foogle.
Right. Should they start taking the
Yep. Start it, log in, take the quiz. Oh, you guys have to take separate quizzes? You got 2 laptops?
I don't know. My laptop doesn't work.
Oh.
This has got about 4% left on the battery.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's going to be dead.
There should be a one of these bags. Plug it in. Back there. They're all the same, right?
Yeah, that should be.
Did you notice that? Anybody else have a low battery issue? When you put in the password, you cannot click on return. You have to click on the button below that. There's a button below that. Scroll down to it. And you have to click on that button. Begin. Otherwise it doesn't work.
Is that B-A-N-K or B-O-N-K?
F-O-O-G-L-E-B-O-N-K.
Okay, I was reading this.
I should have made that more simple. Should have simplified. Everybody logged in and taking it? Anybody got a problem? Verizon your own screen, please?
Right, well, and I know they're going to stop all the components too. So, but I'll make sure we expect the bags and check with them. Make sure they get picked up. Do they need anything else? I can send them there.
Will you spell it for me?
Elson, the reception is going to start at 4, so I would say in about 8 minutes.
Okay. Well, we'll just have to go theoretically then.
How do you address, if you do the individual quiz for points and then you do the group quiz, and so now everybody has the right answers, and now you have 2 more sections of that same class later on.
Well, they don't all have the right answers.
Well, they've all talked about it, and also presumably they have a much closer idea of what the right answers are.
Yeah, I mean, so...
And if you do those scratch-out cards, then they do have the right answers. They give you the right answers.
I've never found that students from one section have been interacting with students from another section. If they could memorize the questions and the answers, all the power to them. If they have it written down, like ABC, that could be a problem. Okay, so we are running out of time, unfortunately. And
should we finish up with
yeah, try to finish the quiz if you can. Are you there yet?
Yeah, I don't think you're right, but
yeah, there's a minute when you're done.
It doesn't show you which one you got wrong.
It will not. It should not show you what you got right on. You can go back in the grade book and look on review the thing you just took, which is what I'd encourage you to do. Right.
So then they can have this open in a review mode while they're doing the group.
Exactly. So that's the way I do it. On this side of the screen will be the quiz they just took, which is why this works on laptops and doesn't work on phones.
Right.
And then on this side is the team one that they're taking. The individual one does not show the answers, right or wrong. It shows their choices. And on this side, when they're done taking it, it will show them what the correct answer. They'll show them what the answer was if they got it correct. That's an option in these folks. So if you got the answer right, you get a green check. If you got it wrong, it puts a red X next to the one you selected. But it doesn't tell you what the right answer is. Right. You can go into Gradebook and see what your scores are on those things. So what I would normally have to do is email get together in groups and take that quiz again and compare your answers. And that's the fun part that we're running out of time to do. Because that's where, to me, that was where the epiphany moment happened for me. It's like, wow, this is fun.
But one thing that I wonder about is if all the members of the team are goofed up on what the answer is, but somehow someone sort of overpowers them, and so I'm sure that that's the answer. They're not. How are they ever? They may leave misunderstanding because that's always supposed to be right. So I'm sure he's writing it this time.
They can just have their books open, their notes open, so if everybody managed to get it wrong, they have an opportunity to get it right based on their notes.
Oh, so you said it was
terribly on the individual one, and then they do terribly on the team. Then they all know that they're doing poorly.
Well, that's
and
not
if you have
very
one
easy
student,
here.
this happened this morning, was it yesterday? A student said, "I convinced my team of the wrong answer." But that comes up, and they say, "You convinced us of the wrong answer. We're not going to trust you next time." And they don't. And then they work a little bit harder to If we can't trust anybody, then I got to rely on myself. And that means I got to study.
Well, then you have an opportunity to teach, again,
Right.
just that piece. You don't have to go over the entire lecture, then you can just go over what people seem to have gotten.
Yes, you can go over that quiz and those quiz questions. And in my case,
aren't we?
when I do VSpace, I tell them ahead of time, the midterm is not going to be like these quizzes. Because my midterm, I have a few questions in VSpace, and for the quizzes, I select the questions that I think are appropriate. So it's 15 questions. On the midterm, it's a random selection of a larger pool. And you're going to get some of those questions and some you're not.
When I do essay questions for my midterm and my final.
Right. The other thing I would like to show you, if we have
You have them take their midterm, you have them take their test in class on their laptop?
Correct. So the midterm is taken in class the same way you would take a quiz, but it's an individual quiz. Every quiz is unique because it's a random selection from the pool of questions of those 3 or 4 chapters that we covered for the midterm. Then I have these writing assignments they do in Google Docs, and I think this is the precision, and I wish we could, we had more time to cover this, to go over this, because using Google Docs can be really, I can't get into it. Dang it.
You're not going to tell us the right answer?
I can't run Firefox off this, so I don't have all my passwords memorized, so I can't get into Google Docs because I don't know what my password is. It's in my password secret. But what Google Docs allows you to do, okay, the students can share a document, they can work on it simultaneously. So the team assignment I give, have them start in class talking about it, who's going to do what. They complete it outside of class. And I can go in, so I give them a due date, they've got to submit it, and after they submit it, I go in and I make all my comments, and then I tell them, you have to put a comment at the end of the document that you have reviewed all of my comments. And when your team secretary notifies me that all of you have made a comment that you've reviewed my comments, then you can revise it and have it put it back. So this gets them working, editing each other's stuff. So like the first round of this on the first assignment, nobody was taking each other's work. And I just load it up with comments, and then I tell the whole, and you can email everybody in Google Docs really easily. Email all the collaborators. Just one click, they don't have to know anybody's email address or anything. And I tell them, your team, really, you guys didn't work as a team to catch each other's mistakes. You're increasing my workload, and I'm unhappy. You guys got to catch these things so that I don't. And actually, the first writing assignment was common writing errors. And this is a sociology class, but I'm not the neuroscience. So it was one of the things that was you couldn't also figure out with my big courses is that how can I get people to write better? I said, all right, I'll give them a writing assignment. Then I had this impossible workload of 50 papers to evaluate. Then I'd evaluate them in Turnitin.com. They wouldn't review it. I didn't have time to revise 50 papers and then have them do a second submission. Which is too much work. Team assignments are better because they're doing the work. That's what the keynote speaker was saying today. Get the students to do the work. And it works better than peer review in Turnitin.com. That just did not. I tried that too, and I'm liking Google Docs so far. And the great thing is the Google Docs is integrated into Canvas. It's a button called collaboration. But you don't use it on the home page, you use it on the group pages. So you form groups, and you go to a group home page, and in the group home page is another collaboration button that's different. And what's great about that one is, right now in VSpace, I have to give them a Word document and have to copy and paste it in Google Docs and then add all the shares. With the Canvas, you don't have to do anything. You create it. We create it, and then they use the one we've given them. They don't have to copy and paste it. And then they're not complaining about, I got to do this VSpace, and then I got to do Google Docs, and then I got to do your website.
So it can only be implemented through groups. You're not able to use Google Docs independent from the groups?
No, it's Google Docs is built into the groups in Canvas.
It's just a nicer way of doing it, because then you don't have to create the groups in Google Docs too.
Correct. And you can speed grade it within Canvas. The grade is automatically inserted. Here I got a grade, and you go into VSpace, you know, grade by each group, grade one student, and you can grade by group, but you've got to add VSpace. We're going in line from a go-kart to a Ferrari.
You're doing lunch courses.
I'm doing it in all my courses.
Wow. So how long have you been teaching with Canvas?
I've just started this semester with Canvas. and I'm learning a lot. And that's a course I don't have any multiple choice quizzes on because I can't import my stuff from VSpace into Canvas. They don't have the tool ready yet, but they will this summer. So this one course I can teach in Canvas because I don't have any multiple choice quizzes and I'm just doing writing assignments, and I've always only done writing assignments in this course. But otherwise, next in the fall, they'll have the import tool set up, and I can import all of my VSpace stuff into Canvas, and then I can implement it in all my courses using Canvas only. Right now, I'm only teaching the courses.
Right. Well, we better go because
Yep.
we've seen that thing. Thank
Yep.
you. That's great. Very
Oh, by the way, one last quick thing that you're going to want to know this. If you go to resources, you're in this course. The PowerPoint that I gave you and the article that I reference is all in here. So and the team-based learning peer-back form is here. The PDF file of the academic paper on team-based learning, my PowerPoint, the handout you got is all in there. So if you want to look further into it, you are able to do so. And normally I would have you complete an evaluation of this. Me too. And there's some key things to learn.
Yeah, and I used to teach challenge during the free years.
Oh, yeah.
How to use educational technology in another classroom. And I taught them what Google Docs, like they would look at, dear dad, like most of them don't know how to use it.
Yeah, I didn't either until
And, so, I don't know.
Anyway, who put them into it? I can't remember. Somebody put Google Docs. Or maybe it was a student. You can share them.
Yeah, I love Google.
Me too. Once you start using it, you realize, oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, they're valuable as far as group work.
I only wish they had one thing. I wish that I like the way I can grade things in Turnitin.com.
Right.
Because I can set up my boilerplate comments.
Right.
And highlight different colors and things like that. I only wish that Turnitin.com had a share feature. Because then that would work.
Yeah.
But the way Google Docs has got it set up, you can communicate with the students. You can see every version that's been done.
Right.
Yeah,
there's a lot of
a lot of features in it. It's rich.
So I may send it.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
All right, I'm Nelson. Appreciate I'd be happy to help out.
All right,
Mike, how's it going? Good.
One of my problems with groups, I use the groups.
Yeah.
It's kind of an unusual problem. That many college students are achievement orientated because they're coming out of the middle class. They want to get things done. That I have, for example, a strategic plan. When you develop a mission statement, and the vision is the process. I don't care what the statement says. I need you to go through the process of how you develop it.